Welcome to this updated and more simplified tutorial for Satisfactory, where I will explain how to set up a basic and functional oil refinery for producing plastic and rubber using the basic recipes that you get from the hub without having to go hunt down hard drives for alternate recipes. This updated setup is designed to get you started with your initial needs for plastic and rubber right after you have unlocked the milestone oil processing under the Tier 5 milestones in your hub. You will also need the Tier 4 milestone, Logistics Mark III for Mark III belts, and of course the Tier 3 milestone, Coal Power for pipes. This build will give you a per minute production of 80 plastic and 80 rubber, which should provide you with your initial needs for these two resources. First of all, you need to make sure that you have the needed materials for this build in your inventory. I recommend building on foundations, since that makes aligning things a lot easier, so you'll need some concrete for those. I find that when you're working with pipes and you want them to look neat and clean, building with foundations make your life a lot easier. However, you should build the way you like things to look, of course, and if that means no foundations, then go for it. I have added what you need for this build in the to-do list, but you may need to adjust your requirements based on how many oil extractors you need to build. Note that I have already built the required buildings, so I am lacking some of the materials involved according to the list. I have put in 2 oil extractors as an example, as that is what I needed for this build. You need enough materials to build 11 refineries and 2 awesome sinks. Remember that you also need basic materials like iron rods and plates, wire, cable, copper sheets and so forth, since you need to build conveyors, power poles, pipes and other basic things. When you have picked up what you need for the build, it is time to locate some oil nodes. And I recommend taking a look at the interactive map over at Satisfactory Calculator if you are unsure where to find them. You will need you'll find a link to the map in the description of this video. But you can of course just use your scanner to search for the nodes too if you don't want to bother with the map. But please make sure that if you're using the map, then deselect the crude oil resource wells, as you cannot use these until you unlock resource well pressurizers in the Tier 8 Advanced Aluminium Production milestone. The build in this tutorial is based on a total use of 240 crude oil. As with all basic resources in the game, you need to factor in the purity of the nodes to ensure you get enough of the raw materials for your build. Crude oil nodes follow the same pattern as the other nodes, giving you 60 per minute on an impure node, 120 per minute on a normal node, and 240 per minute on a pure node. Overclocking changes the numbers as per usual, and in this tutorial I'm using 1 normal node and 1 impure node overclocked to 200%, giving me exactly 240 crude oil. By the time you're working with oil, you should already have a basic understanding of how pipes and fluid dynamics work from when you hopefully set up your coal power and had to set up water pipelines for that. If you need a refresher, then please check out my tutorial on pipes and fluid dynamics, linked in the info card up in the right and in the description of this video. In the example build that I'm showing in this tutorial video, I do not need to use pumps, as the pipes are not exceeding the basic head lift of 10 meters, which is the head lift any building will provide you without using pumps. Whether it is an extractor, refinery or any other building that deal with liquids, 10 meters is the default head lift. If your build needs more head lift than 10 meters, remember to place pumps at the appropriate places using the new blue ring indicator on the pipes and the snap function that the pumps provide after update 3.5 to make sure that your crude oil and or heavy oil residue that will be produced as a byproduct in this setup can flow to where it is needed. Now, I decided to build this setup with a production of 80 rubber and 80 plastic per minute, but keep in mind that this is an example build and that you can adjust these numbers and scale them up or down to the need that you have for your factory. One refinery set to producing plastic will produce 20 plastic with 10 heavy oil residue as a byproduct. And one refinery set to producing a rubber will produce 20 rubber with 20 heavy oil residue as a byproduct. Now the challenge the game presents to us players is how do we deal with that heavy oil residue byproduct, as the refineries will simply stop producing if either product it is producing isn't dealt with. With a specific example built in this tutorial, we will be producing a total of 120 heavy oil residue, and that is where the additional 3 refineries and the 2 awesome sinks come into the picture. As in my previous tutorial, we will be producing petroleum coke from the heavy oil residue, but in my previous tutorial I used the petroleum coke as a source of power, which I would strongly recommend avoiding now. That power was, even back then, a very unreliable source of power, as if either the plastic or the rubber, or both of them, filled up a container, that stopped the production of heavy oil residue, which in turn meant that no petroleum coke was being produced, which in turn led to the power plants shutting down. And with the changes in Update 4 to all power plants above the biomass burner running at 100% burn rate all the time, and coal power plants now requiring less coal per minute, so you can build more of them, that is now even more relevant. Thus, what we will be doing with the petroleum coke is simply belt it into 2 awesome sinks, converting it into awesome shop coupons, which are always useful. Note that the requirement for 2 awesome sinks come from the assumption that at the time you're looking at this build, you do not have access to Mark IV belts yet, and we will be producing 360 petroleum coke per minute, which is 90 more than a Mark III belt is capable of transporting. If you are using this tutorial at a later point than that, then of course adjust as per your needs. But also remember that you should be looking into the alternate recipes that allows you to make recycled plastic and recycled rubber if you need high quantities of plastic and rubber, as those recipes give you quite a bit more plastic and rubber if you use the diluted fuel recipe. Update 4 has even simplified this quite a bit by allowing you to skip all of the package and unpackage steps and just make the diluted fuel directly in a blender. Before we move on to the building part of the tutorial, in case you wish to skip that part, a quick summary of what you need to build and what the various buildings will need and produce per minute is as follows. Oil extractors producing a total of 240 crude oil. 4 refineries set to producing plastic, that will require 120 crude oil and will produce 80 plastic and heavy oil residue per minute. Belt the plastic into a container and pipe the heavy oil residue to the petroleum coke refineries. 4 refineries set to producing rubber will need the other 120 crude oil and will produce 80 rubber and 80 heavy oil residue. As with the plastic, belt the rubber into a container and pipe the heavy oil residue to the petroleum coke refineries. 3 refineries set to producing petroleum coke will process the 120 heavy oil residue and produce 360 petroleum coke. 2 awesome sinks will chug that 360 petroleum coke produced and output awesome shop coupons for you. And remember that all awesome sinks in your world are connected, and that any awesome sink will show you the total number of coupons you have generated and allow you to print them out wherever you are. With all that out of the way, let's get to the build itself. So as mentioned, I have one node over here. That is an impure node, and I have overclocked this with 2 power shards so that it is outputting, when powered, 120. It's showing the wrong number now there, but it is showing the correct number there because that's the target production rate. There's a pipeline coming out of this one, going up here towards the 4 refineries that I have set to produce rubber, but I have not connected everything up yet. At the other side here, there's another oil node, this being a normal oil node, and this one is not, so it's producing 120 per minute, which is exactly what these 4 refineries will need. Now, I've done a little bit of a shenanigan with a pipe here so that I can walk. You do not really need to do that, but it's also an example of the built-in head lift, which is why I decided to do it. Each of these represent a height of, I believe, let's see, if I put a foundation there, you can see that these foundations are 4 meters in height. So this should be about 3 meters, whereas that pipeline is at about 6 meters. That is less than 10 meters, so it is very safe to just connect that up there. To produce the pipelines like this, you can click the R button. I think that is remappable, but the default will give you something like this. You can switch to conveyor 2D, to vertical, and to between those three. It's only the hypertubes that have the noodle mode. Now, some of you might wonder how to get these things to show snap lines. Well, it is quite simple. Just build one, jump on top of it, and then you'll get snap lines. But do take care. You want to make sure that you have it snapping at the correct angle. So, for instance, in this case, what I did was I stood in front of this oil extractor, and I simply just put down one of these. And when I had put down one of these, I probably should do this at a place where I can actually jump on top of it. When I had put down one of these, I stood on top of it, and that gave me a snap line. Now, we want to put up the junction cross for the final oil refinery here. Now, this is the snap line here. Keep in mind that you will get a snap line there. And if you look at that snap line, it's snapping to the middle of the refinery. You want to go 2 further ahead and make sure that you get the snap line that does not go into the building itself, like this one does, but the one that actually comes from the either input, or in this case, to this case, the input, or the output, if you're dealing with an output. So let's connect up these things. And since we are producing 120 oil on each extractor, and that's what's needed on each side, there is no reason to connect up the pipelines to one another. But if you're using one pure node, obviously that will change. You will then need to connect up the pipelines, but in this specific build that I am doing here, that is not relevant. And there we go. So each of these will be, as soon as those are powered up, receiving 120 crude oil. That is 30 divided by 4. 30 multiplied by 4. That might be easier. Okay, now having the pipes going together with belts is always interesting, and that is something that can be difficult. This example that I'm using here, it isn't pretty, but let's redo it a little bit. What you want to do first is make sure that you get the alignment of the lift. Now, if you're uncertain about the alignment of the lift, there is one very easy way to do that, because you need to take it up. One of these have to go up. You cannot put the pipe through the belt or vice versa. So I feel that it is easier to just put the lifts up. So what I did is just place down a lift, and then you can put down a merger, which then will snap. Make sure that the green arrow goes the correct way. And then you can remove the lift, and you can then place mergers on top of that, and you can connect up the lift with the merger. Another way of doing that, which is the way I usually do it, is by just remembering that first of all, you need the green arrow to go the correct way, and you need to see the snap line, and then it's 1, 2, 3 out. So 1, 2, 3, and make sure that you can see the snap line, that tiny one that is floating in the air behind the to-do list there. And then you just build 3 of them. Now, keep in mind that the mergers and splitters occasionally do weird things. As you can see, it now turned the green arrow to turn towards the refinery. That is not going to be very helpful. Then you can remove the mergers underneath, connect up the lifts, and some people prefer having the mergers one further out so that you can see these accordion things on the top as well. I don't personally feel the need to do that, so That's just a matter of taste. But if you want to have them one further out, then by all means go ahead and do that. You don't need to use Mark III belts or Mark III lifts here. It will actually be more than sufficient to just have Mark I lifts coming out from the refineries and then using a Mark II belt. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I am going to be lazy and just do it this way. Now, I have a container here ready for this. But since we want the pipeline now to come underneath here, we have to be a little bit sneaky about how we want this to go. So, first of all, find the middle of the merger line and then go 2 out and build the conveyor poles so that you get a belt like that, if you want to have it straight. I mean, if you want to build it like this, feel free. That's not a problem. As you can see, the pipeline will pass through very, very easily. But if you want to have it neat, then go there and 2 to the side. And then you can get a line like that. Then you can connect a lift up there and boom. Now this is ready to receive the plastic. And now we have to do the same on the other side. Now making sure that the mergers go the other way. Of course, we need to make sure that the arrow is correct. So 1, 2, and 3. And then let's just repeat that. Should remove these junctions because they were from a previous iteration. And let's turn on some light here, even though it's a little bit on the bright side, that light. There, and finally there. Now again, we remove the mergers underneath and we connect up the lifts. Now there's a slight tink sound that you guys probably can't hear. I don't know if that comes through in the video, but that little tink sound indicates that the belt or lift or whatever is aligned to something, in this case the mergers. So that is a very useful little thing to know when you are connecting up things. That tink sound, I mean, that I was unaware of that until very late in the game. In fact, I found out about it thanks to Wally1169 just in the recent month, which is a little bit embarrassing, but now that I'm aware of it, I want to preach the message to the world because that is so useful. Okay, now we want the pipeline to go here. And to make sure that the pipeline goes there, I will put down a pipeline junction cross there as a temporary junction cross. And that will give me the snap lines that I need. Remember, you want the short snap line, not the long one. Actually, let's get rid of the to-do list now, so that it's not in the way. So not the long one, but the short one. And then basically you just follow through with this. Of course, at the point of the game where I am at, I have the hover pack, which would greatly simplify this for me, but since I'm doing this as a basic tutorial, I'm not using the hover pack very much on purpose. So that's the pipeline with the heavy oil residue from the... Actually, this is the plastic. The rubber is over there, the plastic is here. So that's the heavy oil residue from here. Now, let's remove that again. And I want to put up a stackable conveyor pole with pipeline support. And we need to make sure that this connects up to there. But, as you can see, that gives us a very bizarre looking pipe. And we don't want that. So what we want to do is rebuild it and start from there, which will give us a correct looking pipe. Now this was 2 out from the intersection, so we'll do the same here, 1, 2. And then just connect up the pipe. That. And again, we need a temporary pipeline junction cross. And I think I want to do it from this side, because that way I know that the first snap line that I get is the... from where I'm standing, is the correct snap line that I want. As you can see, finding the snap lines can be challenging even for an experienced player, so don't feel bad if you do that wrong, because it is very, very easy to get the wrong snap line. And I have no idea how many times I've managed to do that little mistake throughout my play sessions. It's been many times, trust you me. Connect up the pipes, and remember this is all transporting heavy oil residue, and it's going to transport less than 300, which is the maximum capacity of a Mark 1 pipe. So we should be fine, or rather we will be fine on that. Now that goes over here, and these do not have any other inputs than heavy oil residue. So we have now connected up the inputs of the crude oil into these refineries on each side. We have connected up the outputs. And the final thing we need to do is connect up the two refineries here that are producing petroleum coke. This one is just a straight ahead belt. The other one needs to be a little bit more sneaky than that, because we need to use a merger on this one. So we have to connect it up like that, and then like that, and then finally we just connect that to there. And now all we have to do is connect up power. And I very consciously decided to not connect up the power until last, because we want the power poles to be in here, and I don't really care about power lines clipping. I'm very, very anti-clipping on everything except for power lines. So power lines clipping in lifts and stuff like that, I could not care less. You could, of course, if you wanted to, build the power poles on the other side of the pipe, but again, you find what you prefer and go with that. So, connect up this power to the various refineries along the route, and this is too narrow for us to pass underneath the pipeline, but jumping through the hoops is fine. And now the autosave is incoming. I should have disabled that for the purposes of the tutorial, but it's fine. Go and connect up there, jump above, connect up there, jump above, connect up there, and then the final one should be here, and connect that up there, and then I can connect it up there, and boom, all of these now have power, and they are glowing yellow, which means they have no input or they are full. Keep in mind that yellow means either no input or full. Now we need power for the oil extractors, of course, and I'm thinking that I'll just put down a power pole there and connect that to there, then connect that to the oil extractor. That doesn't look pretty. Let's change that power pole to here. Then we can have a power pole at the back here. Now this is just me being, well, me, I guess, because I like things to be... Yeah, no, that doesn't work either. Go away, go away. So we'll do it differently then. There. There. I mean, it's not like I don't have the resources and materials that I need to build these. There we go. Now this one we'll bring down the path here, because we also need to connect up power to the other oil extractor, obviously. Wire is too long, so let's stick one there and continue along the route. And we can put one on the corner here. And then the final one we'll put, come on, there, and connect it up to the oil extractor, which is now powered up. Keep in mind that if you overclock an impure node, look at the power consumption here, 121.3 megawatts. That's substantially more than if you run it at 100%, which would be 40. So since you probably at this point only have access to coal power, it might be a good idea to avoid impure nodes if can, and you should be able to, because there are plenty of nodes that are pure and normal in the game, which you should have easy access to. Just trying to figure out the correct. Okay, so it's on that one. Good. Power pole there. Connect that up. Connect that up. Then connect that to there, which we can then connect to the refinery. And same thing here. We connect up this one to the refinery, and the final one we connect also to the refinery and put it there. And now only the awesome sinks require more power. They are the final unpowered thingamajig. So we'll take this one to here, and we'll take this one to here, and then we'll connect up the two awesome sinks like that. And there we go. That's basically what's needed to do for this setup. You can see that the pipelines take a little while to be saturated, and with fluid dynamics in this game, the pipeline over there needs to be fully saturated before anything will be pushed up. You can remedy this by building a pump, which pushes it up if you want to, but I feel that that is really not necessary, because eventually the pressure coming from the heavy oil residue being produced in these refineries will push it up and will then push it over to those refineries there. We are already starting to get plastic in this one, and we should be getting rubber in this one. Excellent. I think that is about it. I can't remember that there should be anything else. So if you have any questions or comments, then please do feel free to leave those in the comments section, of course. And also check out my other Satisfactory tutorials. There are several of them. And if you want, there is also the opportunity to come join us in the Discord server. You'll find a link to that in the description. Satisfactory is one of the more discussed games, of course. But with that, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that this tutorial helped you with your oil refining needs. And I will see you all in another video